Knocked up a girl at 15 and had to pay her to keep the pregnancy. She cut all ties, and I took care of the kids. Now she wants to get back into our lives. Part 2. I told the boys that Bella would not be going on this trip. The next day, I went on a business trip for 2 days. While I was away, there was a party that the boys asked to attend, but I had explicitly said no and instructed my wife not to let them go either. Despite my instructions, the boys attempted to go, and when my wife reminded them of what I said, they told her she wasn't their mother and to stop acting like it. I reiterated that it was an order, and she couldn't let them go. The boys blamed her for their biological mom not being able to go on the trip, and long story short, one of my boys slapped her. I came home on Saturday morning as I always do because everyone is usually home and they all wake up early to greet me. My wife would typically be making something delicious with loud music playing, and my boys would be arguing over something before running to hug me. This time when I came home, the house was quiet, and no one was downstairs. I went to check on the boys, and they were in a bad mood. I then found my wife in bed, just laying there. I later found out what happened, scolded the boys, and canceled the trip. They begged and pleaded with me and apologized to my wife. She said there was no need to cancel the trip since I had spent so much money on it, so I suggested she go with Bella and the boys. She pointed out some safety concerns since we don't know Bella very well, and she's not exactly strong, so she forced me to go. While on the trip, I called her a lot, but she preferred to text. A week later, we got back and noticed the plants were dry. Even though my wife prides herself on her garden, the inside looked exactly as it was when we left. I checked our house alarm system and noticed the door hadn't been opened since it closed when we left. I found my wife lying in her sewing room with all of my drinks. I also noticed all of the clothes she made for the trip had been cut apart. She continued not to speak or move for the next 2 days, so I had to bathe her, but she wouldn't take any food. After some time, she started to eat and held me back when I would hug her, and we finally talked. I apologized for everything that had happened, and she accepted my apology and forgave the boys. I noticed that in the 2 days that followed, she didn't really speak to the boys like she used to. She hadn't hugged them, kissed them, or made any cute comments about how much she loved them. A Friday also passed, and she usually has game nights, but she hasn't. I confronted her, and she told me she wasn't their mother, and her job was to make sure they were taken care of, and she wasn't hurting them in any way. It has been like that since. The house is quiet, our relationship is back to normal, and she's affectionate towards me and everything. But she's not like that with the kids. A backstory about my wife: she has always wanted kids. She specifically wanted only 2 kids because she didn't want to drive a minivan. Before we got married, we talked about having kids, and she told me she didn't want any since she already had 2 boys. I asked twice after that because I make enough and we have a 6-bedroom house, so it wouldn't be a problem. But she gave me the same answer, telling me she already has 2 kids. Today, she told me she wanted a baby. I feel if I do agree, she will completely let go of the kids we have. Now, how should I go about this? You can now check if there's a third part by pressing share and more.